Colin Plume, Self-Made Millionaire Tips. My friend today, Scott Termini from Mint.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about everything.
Cool.
We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about what a great golfer you are.
I hit the long ball.
You hit the long ball. I think we won't divulge that we went golfing and we didn't make it.
I think we got 16 and a half. That's like
holes.
16 and a half is almost there.
Yeah, my perfect golf round would be like 5 holes, I think, and then just focus on the.
You know why it's 18, right?
No.
So there was a debate, right, back when they were kind of like creating the game.
Okay.
And they're like, okay, some courses were 10 holes, some were 25.
They didn't have a standard.
They didn't have it. There wasn't like a standard thing.
Okay.
And so this guy from Scotland, who I don't remember his name, was like, listen, I find that when I'm enjoying golf the most, it's when I have a little nip of scotch before every hole. And if you find a fifth of scotch, there happens to be 18 nips in a fifth of scotch, and really after that, like, why be on the course?
Okay, that makes sense.
So at least
and by the way that I play, makes perfect sense. Yeah. I think I told you my rule of thumb with golf is if I lose less than 10 balls in a day, I'm doing great. If I lost more, then forget the score, forget everything else, irrelevant, just how many balls. So obviously we're talking everything marketing, kind of what's happening. There's the writer strike happening right now.
Yeah.
It's really complex and it's obviously shaking up a big part of our economy. The writers and the actors are trying to get residuals and trying to get a piece of that pie because obviously the way that shows are working today has changed dramatically. Writers aren't making what they used to, and if they have a great idea, they want to be able to monetize it for a long time, and the company's obviously on the other side of it. And then there's this whole idea of AI coming in and doing a lot of the writing. What's your sort of take on what's happening there, and are the writers, do they have a chance in this argument or
I think there's a lot of ways to approach the conversation, but I'll start at like 30,000 feet. And the truth is like anytime there's new technology in anything, it disrupts how things are done, right? Mm-hmm. I think much like every other time, like this is going to be a tool, not a direct replacement. I think it's going to improve the work product. I think it's going to improve the iteration. I think it's going to have a net-on-net positive impact on the end product, right? Because at the end of the day, creative people who are smart and care about it are still going to be the ones in there working through and doing all of this. But it's going to disrupt many people, right? Because you can do more with less, right? And so, I think when we start to look at this in the grand scheme of things, like it's probably pretty concerning for a lot of people and reasonably so. Like I said, it's going to kind of push things around a little bit, but I think when you really zoom out and look at where is this going to go, like there's never going to be a day where I think computers are conceiving all of the best new ideas, mm-hmm. right? And I think that the creatives in the world can probably rest pretty assured in that. Mm-hmm. So like I think at the highest level, it's going to change some things, but I think all in all, it'll be a positive thing.
Yeah. And go ahead.
I have a question. This is a question for both of you from a business perspective. One of the complaints that the actors actually joined the writer's strike.
Right.
And one of the complaints that they have
is because they needed to get out. They were bored at home. That's not why. Nobody's watching them. Now they're like, this is a new character for them. It's like, it's sort of ridiculous. You have like the wealthiest actors, people worth $100 million out there, just out there like, I'm with you guys. And then they're going to go back and they're going to ask for 90% of the budget of that movie, 100%. Which is basically cutting out the writer's fee. Okay. Am I the only one that thinks this way?
I mean, people love to be victims.
I don't know.
Just these things are probably not going to make it into the final cut.
This is going to get edited out. No.
Cut it.
Wait, why? Am I offending an A-list actor? Is that what I'm worried about?
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. That's not going to affect this podcast.
It's actually the question is connected
to that. Tom Cruise is going to put a thumbs down to this.
Dislike.
Yeah.
So the complaint is that a lot of them are getting residuals that are 20 cents, 8 cents, sometimes pennies.
Yeah.
And the primary reason is the streaming platforms, because many of these shows are actually being streamed on
Right.
Netflix and whatever. And from a business perspective, if you're paying, if a customer is paying let's say $15 a month for that, and you're watching 30 shows in a week, what kind of payment do you actually expect to be sent
Right.
to?
Yeah.
So from a business
it is unrealistic in a way for these services to. I mean, on YouTube, to parallel it, YouTube, there are a lot of influencers that make a penny on a video.
For
yes.
So in a way, it's the same idea. You know, that it can't be, they can't, and it's usually scales down over time. You know, I have some influencers now that we work on, unfortunately, they've a lot of their videos they've had to remove. I have one guy, it's a horrible story. He had like 35,000 videos, and he made a penny or 2 pennies or 5, you know, and every month, you know, you add up 30,000 videos, is a lot of money, and he had to remove all 30,000 videos, which is always the problem when you don't control on, you know, YouTube, you don't control your content, they can decide that something you said is wrong and they don't agree with it, and then, you know, then you're not getting paid.
Or they can turn off your monetization.
Oh, it happens all the time. Yeah, I mean, we're, you know, Noble, we have a lot of influencers, and it, you know, they've gone through that whole evolution of like YouTube, and then a lot of them have gone to Rumble now, and it's a challenge. But anyways, to go back to the writers and kind of what's happening is I think that it's hard to figure out what's a fair monetization, because yes, you go, okay, someone's paying $15 a month, but it could have cost that streaming service $5 to get them in the door at least. And then how long is that person going to stay? I mean, there's a lot of costs when it comes to a streaming service. It's not just like
they don't own the bandwidth, they don't own the internet. Like,
sure,
there's hard data costs associated with it. If it were an easy endeavor, everybody would have their own.
Sure,
right?
And they're all failing. You know, if you look at them, they're all not profitable right now. That's the hard part about this negotiation. If this was 4 years ago, I think they would have had a better way to get their chances on their strike. Sure. But right now, I mean, every data that comes out on these streaming services is that they all overspent. They're not driving the kind of revenue that they thought. Disney's struggling with it. I mean, everybody's struggling with it. They're all going back to the commercial model that has 100%. Been the TV model for 80 years or however long we've had it. So I don't see them gaining a lot of success. And I agree with Scott. I think that the true ideas are going to be formed by people, the great ideas. But I think simple dialogue getting sent out to someone in AI that's not like rocket science is going to happen more and more. My only thought is then all the dialogue is it going to all sound kind of the same?
I mean, again, limited firsthand experience, but from what I've seen, I think it does an incredibly great job already of fitting the mold of what it's asked to do.
Yeah, so it could be like, oh, give me dialogue of a 19-year-old freshman in college, and it can just go down that path.
Yeah. They're doing it on Twitter. There are certain AI bots that they're actually on Twitter that you can have a conversation with. And you can choose which one you like. You want someone sarcastic, someone mature, someone younger. So yeah, they're getting there. Yeah.
Well, listen, it's I hope for them, they can get as much as they can, but I think they're moving down a path where it's just going to get worse and worse for them, in my opinion. That's why it's hard to find writers. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not easy. Everyone that's tried to hire writers, it's really hard to find a quality writer. People they're leaving that career, they're going into other things because they just can't find the right way to make money.
I think the people who are in that space are finding that they're doing other things that support the writing, right? Yeah. It's not the only thing they're doing. Right. So it's more full stack creative briefs. It's different stuff. But to be just a writer anymore is definitely getting harder.
Yeah. To segue a little bit, when we were on the golf course after I had a hole-in-one, I was talking to you about...
Multiple hole-in-ones.
And I was talking... Like Steph Curry?
Yeah.
I was talking to you about one of your great success stories, and you told me about a company on Facebook
Yep.
that you started with really early on. Yep. They're spending like $1 million a day on Facebook, which that must be fun.
It was a wild thing to come along for the ride for
Where
sure.
Where did they? How long did it take to them? So you started with them. You said day 36 in the business.
Yeah.
And then how long did it take for them to get to like they were spending $5,000 or whatever to spending $1 million a day?
Very fast.
Really?
Very fast.
What kind of business is this?
Consumer health product.
Consumer health product. That's very vague. You can't get any more specific
vitamin,
than that.
okay,
that's better.
Vitamin, mineral supplement.
Yeah, consumer
category.
health product could be like
for sure. Yeah,
so could be a shake weight. I mean, no, probably not.
It was not the shake weight. I can attest here on the
They
record.
made a lot of money on that one though too. Okay, so
I think it's going to make a comeback personally.
You do?
I do. I think the shake weight's going to come. I think it's coming
I want
back.
the shake weight people.
I haven't seen
back here.
I have not seen a shake weight on TikTok yet. I feel like those two things colliding. It's gonna.
Fire!
It's gonna be.
Oh my god!
Let's just cancel it. Cancel shake weight.
Cancel the shake
weight.
weight.
Cancel.
No. Here's the thing. I'll have them on, but I'm not gonna.
I think you should.
No, I'm not gonna hold it. That's where I draw the line.
I think that's half the fun.
Yeah. All right. So this company, they sell vitamins or whatever.
Yep.
You get the account, and had they advertised anywhere when you guys had started? Or
yeah, I mean, so it's kind of a fun story, right? I think it's a great business story. We were, kind of coming into our own as an agency, and they reached out to us from the backseat of a cab in New York. They had just gotten off the set of Ellen, and so they had done an integration with Ellen, and we're on the Ellen show. And they knew that was like the beginning of their rocket ship to the moon, and they needed partners.
You had an ad on the back of a cab.
No.
I'm like, that's some interesting placement by you guys.
Me. No.
Yeah, you're like, these guys are gonna come out of Ellen. We'll be there at the right time.
right person, right place, right
time.
By
the way, that's some genius geo-targeting. I don't know if that's available. We haven't talked about that.
We can do it.
Okay.
And so we they found us. They were looking for something very particular. They were looking for a niche that we specialize in, which is like something I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later. And they found us because of that niche, and we talked to them, and I said, listen, let me come up and see you in Montreal. And they're like, really? I was like, yeah. And I was on a plane the next day in their boardroom, and we signed their agency a record on site right then and there. And we've been a client for 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, so they had some buzz.
For sure.
So you're like, okay, we got to get out there fast.
Yep.
So you went to Montreal. How long did it take you to turn around the copy to get up on Facebook?
So that's like the wild thing is that in today's ad world, almost everybody is iterating on their own creative. They have their own house media people.
So they already were ready. You just had to get them out to market.
100%. We took them to TV and audio on like day 45 of the company. Mm-hmm. And I was up there. We did creative briefs. We did the whole thing.
Wait, hold on. They were on TV
and
day 45 and radio
the
day 45 since they started the company.
Yeah.
I think when I started, I was on like in the classifieds, and I was in the yellow pages still, and I think I was on some rotary phones, and that's, by the way, that blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's this like perfect storm where you have a good product, right? That is kind of its own thing. There's not a huge competitor in the marketplace, or really any competitor in the marketplace. There's a defined need. It fixes a problem. And it was met with what at the time was the most powerful advertising sales engine that had ever been created, which was like, kind of that pre-pandemic Facebook and paid search ecosystem, and so it went from zero to $675 million in sales, like that.
So what is so you said something very important, that they had a specific problem that they were solving and that they didn't have any so what was the problem? Can you say that?
Not specifically, but like I'll just say this. When you are there's a defined first mover's advantage, right? In almost anything. Mm-hmm. And so if you're thinking about any business and you're the first one to say, I don't like that problem, but there doesn't seem to be a well-defined way to get around it. Like everybody just kind of assumes it's part of the equation, and you figure a way to take it out of the equation, you've got something special, right? And so they were able to use that paradigm and take their product and really put it on, 14,000 different stores' shelves across every single platform online. Every single influencer and A-list celebrity you have ever heard of has spoken of it. Like, it is a really clear opportunity when you have this thing that is just a good product, and then you meet it with really great sales and marketing.
Yeah. And so they hit Facebook running, and we've kind of talked about this, is that you hit Facebook kind of at the right time, and and this is the thing about being in the marketing biz and like constantly trying to, is that thing kills, and then they increase the prices or they change, like what right? I mean, there was a shift in Facebook, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't. So it was good for what, a year or two, and
A couple
then,
years, yeah.
yeah,
A couple
and
years,
then they got too expensive, or what happened that they?
Yeah, I mean, Facebook at large had major shifts. We like to refer to it as like the iOS 14 update. So basically, Apple has this walled garden, and so there was a time when data was a little bit more readily available to Facebook, and going back to the right ad at the right place at the right time.
So you could just deliver it to the right person.
You had no concept. Facebook was doing it all for you. It was
I see.
couldn't miss, right? So it knew what you were searching. It knew the phones proximate to you on the same Wi-Fi network, what they were searching, any cookies they were pretty much everybody has it on their device, right?
Yeah,
So there's
they had all
so
that data.
much first-party data. And so essentially what happened is they had built this incredible targeting apparatus that was serving ads to the right people at the right times who were likely to convert for the product or service across literally almost everything. And then Apple flipped the switch. They said, no more.
Yeah.
And so that really threw a wrench into productivity of Facebook spend, but ultimately the most impactful thing wasn't just productivity, it was scale. So you go from being able to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars down to, if you want to maintain the same return on ad spend, a 50th of what you were able to do before. And so,
because you don't have the right data.
Right. Well,
you don't have that specific data. They're not able to pinpoint the way that they used to be able to pinpoint before this
exactly.
change with Apple.
And as an advertiser, again, that's kind of all happening behind the scenes. That's the magic of that was the magic of Facebook or paid social advertising inside of the Meta platform is like the things that it was doing for you to get the conversions. It was almost like a money printing machine. You put $1 in and you got $5 out.
Yeah.
Can you explain just for our viewers what was the change that Apple did that affected Facebook targeting?
Yeah. I mean, in non-technical terms, they basically stopped sharing the information about the device user's preference, and that really clamped down on Facebook being able to put the ads in the right places at the right time for the right people.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. And so this company just everything aligned.
Yep.
And it just kind of took off. So
Yeah.
So now Facebook it's they don't have this incredible advantage that they used to have, and now you're really looking at data in a different way when you're doing ads on Facebook, and you're a little bit kind of shooting in the dark, and then you're gathering data, and you're changing your strategy pretty continuously.
Yeah, so. It is certainly rebounded from the bottom depths of kind of making the adjustments, because not shortly after Apple had their policy device sharing change, Google made the same move. And so Meta was faced with a real crux of a business decision, and ultimately their algorithms have kind of amended themselves and come back into a world where, for certain consumer brands in reaching into certain demographics, it can still be a really productive ad environment. But yeah, you certainly have a lot more test and measure. It's not just like you could literally, I feel like there was a point in 2020 and 2021 where you could put anything out there and it just returned, right? And certainly those days are gone.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that was, pandemic spending and people being locked in and kind of really, really focused on consumer activity. And so certainly there's macro changes that come with it, but inside of the ad environment, it's not the same as it once was, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, people that, you saw these luxury items selling like crazy because people were just at home, silver chains, and there was this whole kind of smaller silver jewelry market that exploded because people just wanted a little luxury beauty products. I mean, people were just, but that's obviously kind of shifted. Now that people are back out, they don't care about looking good, I guess. So now it's, no, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, it's still going really good. But yeah, so that's, really interesting that, you took this monster. What, have you had any kind of smaller situations where a company had tried a few firms and, because I know someone that's spent, millions and millions and millions of dollars. There's a lot of BS in marketing, the marketing space. It's probably the most BS out of, there's been many times where you're promised things and you get, not only like low returns, like none. Yeah. It's happened to me, so many times where,
for sure.
You get this person and they're just like selling you the world and nothing happens. Can you tell me about a situation where, someone came to you, they tried a few firms and obviously they were skeptical and you kind of found something?
We have a name for those clients. We call them shelter dogs. They just need love.
They need love.
And they've been done dirty. It's not their fault.
Yeah, it's true.
It's not their fault.
Yeah.
But so it's...
There's a lot of hand-holding in that beginning process.
You're developing trust.
Yes.
Right? At the end of the day, it sounds a bit cynical. It makes our job easy, right? When we founded the company, we realized that, in short, being honest and caring and trying, if you could just do those things, that made you better than a good crop. Yeah. Right? Obviously there's always the motivation to be the top in your field and get better every day. But, talking specifically about, somebody who kind of had a bad taste in their mouth, I can certainly think of many examples. And really what it comes down to is trying to create a paradigm where it's like, listen, I'm aware of what you've experienced, and I'm going to try to create a paradigm that helps you feel comfortable in pursuing this. Because the truth of any marketing firm is that they are going to have to make some mistakes. You got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, right? Not everything you do in marketing is going to work 100% of the time. And so, coming from somebody who's maybe been done dirty or, has been promised the moon and the stars and doesn't even get a sunny day, you have to create a paradigm where there's communication and there's trust. And really the way to do that is to try to sit on the same side of the table, understand what the real, problems of the business are, and craft, solutions together, implement, test, and measure in a way that's, pretty undeniable. And from there, you tend to build that trust, right? Because the trust isn't just in you. Yes, you're doing what you said, and yes, you're executing against the agreement and all of those things. But what you start to do is you start to build a procedural trust, right? And so I think a lot of people who have been hurt never were afforded an opportunity to really understand what was being done with their money. And if you say, hey, listen, I'm going to treat your money like it's my own, and come along for the ride, that really helps bridge the gap for folks like that.
No, and I think it's in any business having that relationship of trust. But I think that there's so many of these companies out there that promise stuff with SEO. They promise all these things that they can do in a quick time period, or they're cheap, and it's like, $50 a month. You're gonna get me to the first. You're gonna guarantee I get to the first page for for $50.
Yeah.
I see them all the time.
They're out there.
I see them. And listen, maybe if you have maybe you have a dog grooming business in a specific city.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah. Totally.
Maybe you probably not.
Yeah, Salt Lake City dog grooming.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, exactly. And maybe it's a type of dog that nobody grooms. Right. Maybe you're going to get to the top. But everything else, everything that's really heavily searched, you can't do it for 50, but you can't do it.
No.
And it takes time, and it takes, it takes a lot of energy. Talk to me, kind of quick snippet about what would you recommend for a business owner starting out? The SEO game is challenging. It's the long game. What are your thoughts about how focused an early business owner should be on the SEO side as opposed to the just paid?
I think it's a great question.
You're paying, in some ways you're paying both ways.
For sure.
I'm saying is to get traffic in immediately. How do you find that budget? Where's the, and I know this is a loaded question, but with people changing and how websites are changing, how important is SEO now relative?
It's super important, but I would say in the grand scheme of things, I find SEM, search engine marketing, as a broader topic to be the real conversation, right? Because it should be inclusive of paid and organic. And the paid side, for better or worse, is the driving mechanism behind every large scale business, right? And so, should you ever fully abandon an investment in SEO? No, you should absolutely be investing in your ability to drive organic, relevant traffic, for sure. And you should be doing it by providing a service to the audience, right? Compelling, truthful information that serves a need in the marketplace and ultimately esteems your company in an opportunity to gain a potential customer or brand equity for a future customer, right?
And also, like, the thing that I've always found that's interesting is, like, let's just say, to kind of get it down, let's say you're putting articles on your website to try to gain. It's such a, like, I think it's the perfect analogy of what marketing is. It's so much of it is like a leaky bucket. There's a guy, I can't remember his name now, but the guy, I don't know if you heard about the guy that made the most free throws ever in a row. He wrote a little book about, he made 2,750 free throws in a row. He was a 70-year-old man.
Amazing.
And his whole
Can
theory.
we verify this information?
he had a person there that was counting.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
It's not fake news. It's not fake news. And his theory was that you just had to keep practicing in a certain way, and he had a rhythm to it, and a very interesting analogy about how he visualized, like the way he visualizes that his hand was just dumping the ball in the basket. That's what he would visualize. And the only reason he stopped is that he was tired because he was 70 years old. He made 2,750 in a row. But his whole analogy about shooting, and I believe it's very true about marketing, is that it is consistency, right?
Yeah.
And so I found that's interesting is, like, you think, oh, this article will get me to the first of this keyword, and it's sometimes it's not that article, right? I mean,
it's like, I'll give you another example. It's like advertising is exercise. You can't do a sit-up and want to know where your six-pack's at. Mm-hmm. You've got to put in the work.
Yeah.
Right? And that's doubly true of SEO. Right? Anytime you're talking about driving organic traffic, it's a long game. Yeah. You're constantly having to produce net new content. You're constantly having to adjust your sales to the trade winds of what Google's doing,
right?
And
what people are searching, right? What people are
100%, right?
Yeah, and there's things that are like, and everybody wants to go after. So I'll just use, like, I have a lot of friends that are in real estate. Everyone wants, like, top, LA real estate agent, which is really hard to get or whatever. But there could be keywords that are down the scale that are easier to get. So you don't want to not go after those because, listen, at the end of the day, if you could get on the first page for something that's maybe getting less of search, but you're really right there, it's still going to get you leads.
It's all about value.
You still get eyeballs.
Yeah,
right?
And so going back, it might be, instead of, best real estate agent in LA, it might be real estate agent, 92624, right? Zip code, right? It might be that level. And yeah, it might get 1/100th the searches, but if you get one for that, it is still an incredible value, right? So, like, there is the long tail game, right? You don't always need to be, number one dog groomer in Salt Lake City. You can find pit bull groomer in a zip code and just extract value from that.
Yeah.
So part of investing in SEO is doubling down on your high conviction, keywords that are linear to your absolute business and continuing to invest in those in the long haul, and then also trying to be ahead of the curve for what people are searching for and finding those longer tail opportunities.
Yeah, and I think a small business owner can find opportunities if they're just really watching what's happening in the search. If they're just, you could do it, obviously, I mean, depending on what your budget is, you can hire a firm too, but really watching to see what people are trending and what people are interested in, and then creating articles in that way. It's a great way to trend. And I've known some small business owners that, just created, like, one-off websites on something very kind of specific, and those things still work for them.
It's a huge tool. Niche and highly specified content paired with really niche and highly specified paid and organic traffic is a recipe for success. We've done it time and time and time again. It's one of the key tenets I talk to any person in business when we're talking about marketing is, like, find your niche.
Right.
And find a way to drive qualified traffic to that niche.
Yeah.
And so kind of going back to the paradigm of how important is organic versus paid, kind of that conversation. Organic is great, right? You always want to rank, but you can drive paid traffic that is one standard deviation from the topic at hand into that funnel that's niche and highly specified, and that works really great too.
Yeah.
But if for a small business, for example, I don't have a lot of budget, and it's a question of SEO, paid ads, or social media marketing, what should be my priority?
I think the answer for me is very clear. The first dollars out of pocket for almost every small business in America should be paid search. If somebody is actively looking for your product or service and you can connect with them, you're gonna win at a higher ratio than having to inform them or make them aware and them going like, oh, that does seem like a good idea. That's a very different level of intent from somebody who's like, I am actively looking for a plumber in Chicago, Illinois, that fixes leaky faucets. Well, if I have an ad for leaky faucet repair in Chicago, I'm going to do great, right? So if I have $500 a month or $500 a day or $500 an hour, you want to spend it on the thing that's going to have the lowest funnel demand, and that's people who are searching for your exact product or offering. And so for that reason, I like paid spend against most small businesses.
What's the most common mistakes that you encounter when you get a new client? Like almost always, you know that this is the one thing that they're doing wrong.
I think the good ones do it well, but a lot of people struggle with having like an understanding of what the core mission is, right? So when people come to us for marketing, sometimes they want to esteem the brand, or they want some sizzle, or they want it to look cool, but they lose focus of the idea that they're needing to drive incremental sales lift or share of voice against a competitor, or awareness about a new product feature, right? And so a lot of times people get caught up in sizzle rather than substance. And so depending upon who you're talking to and where they're at inside of an organization, we see that mistake time and time again, where you get caught up in kind of the things that make marketing beautiful, but the things that don't necessarily make marketing work.
Well, and also I think your marketing through to your sales funnel have to connect too.
100%.
And I think it's one of the things that when I started was we have a writer who the two things that I think great advice I got early was he was like put your you're in it you're in the gold space. There's a lot of kind of weird stuff happening there, but you guys are running an honest business. You should put your face out there.
100%.
That was the first thing. That was great advice. And then early on, we had a PR firm, and they were like, "What separates you guys? Tell us about your." And they did a full brand analysis, and they like came down for a few hours, and they just asked questions, and they pulled and they pulled and they pulled, because it was in a way it's not like we are the only person that does what we do, right? But if you're doing something good, there's things that are different. And I think that PR brand analysis is sort of like what you're talking about. A lot of companies, they don't know exactly what they do well. They don't know what their competitive advantage is. And they're not willing to sort of dive in and maybe think about, hey, like let's add something that like one of the things that nobody had when we started with Noble Gold is that we take pictures when they get their IRAs, like the gold. I thought that was like we had to do that because I want people to see that what they bought. Nobody did it, and we had to pay for it. But it helps because people can see like it's really there. We're really doing the thing that we told you we're going to do. So it's just I think those little things people don't realize. So I think it's a big part of marketing is really understanding your brand, and then that helps mint, because if everybody's the same, like how do you make the ad pop? How do you what's the edge?
100%.
And I think being active in the campaigns is really important too. One thing I wanted to ask was, what would be your, for someone looking to hire a marketing firm, what's your BS? What's your quick, like, these guys are full of shit?
Yeah, it's an easy one, right? Ask the question, what's my ROI going to be? What's my cost per lead going to be? Ask a metric, right? And if they give you a hard and fast number, they're full of it. Because in the marketing world, everything is different. It's different for every brand, even inside of the same category. And the truthful answer to that is we won't know until we get in, right?
But they could give you, like, you go, okay, they go email marketing, it's going to cost X to X per lead. Google, I think it could be, right?
It's okay to have a range,
Right.
But somebody who's like, yeah, for every dollar you give me, you're going to have 5 back. That's a real problem.
Right,
That's a real problem.
That is true. Because not every, and you don't know where, not every search engine could be different too. I mean, maybe we should talk about that too. I was going to, so you're saying BS test is they go, it's going to be, you're going to make, leads are going to cost $30, and then it's going to take you 5 leads, and you're going to get it right.
I think it goes back to your question of, like, there's so many people who've promised you all of these things in the marketing world and this and that and the other thing. And, like, anybody who's doing that typically doesn't have faith in their ability to be like, there's a process involved here, there's work involved here, and, like, this is what we think the ranges are, but ultimately we're going to get in and find out and work through it. Like, those are the people who are actually.
But also, as a business owner, going into a marketing meeting with a company, they should know what they can really afford.
Yes.
You should go, hey, my product costs $500. It cost me $300 to make it. I can give you. I got $100 in marketing to close this. Right?
100%.
I mean
that's the most important continuum, right? So I always look at any business, anywhere. It doesn't matter if you're selling a cake or a car, right? I always look at it and I break it into 3 buckets, right? The first is cost to serve, meaning what does that product actually fit? That's your cost of goods. That's the people associated with it. It's your overhead. It's all that. What's your cost to serve that product? The second is what's your cost to acquire it, right? That's the second bucket of revenue, right? How much can you spend in marketing to get that thing into the hands of a consumer? And the third is your profit, right? And so if you can keep your cost to serve and your cost to acquire, you can keep your profit. But if either of those goes up, your profit goes away. And so I always urge every business to know definitively, if I could acquire a customer for X dollars, I could do it in perpetuity. It's such an important metric to understand.
And there's some businesses that, being in the years of marketing, I found out that actually lose money on the first product. That scares the crap out of me personally as a business owner. But there are, because they need that customer, they're going to sell them, something else. So they'll just, they'll lose on that first product.
For sure.
I've never invested in a business that is in that realm because I've never felt but I know that people do, and they can you think of what industry is like that?
I mean, there's a ton of loss leaders, business services as a general rule. So, I think to kind of look at certain things, let's not use business services. Let's use Costco, right? They sell their rotisserie chickens for a loss.
Right.
Everybody loves the rotisserie chicken. That's what gets people coming in the door. That's what gets them.
The hot dog.
The whole thing. They lose money on those things because they know they're going to get them down the way. But to talk about a more traditional business sense, taking a loss leader because you're going to cross and upsell them, you might look at something like I said in the business services. Hey, I'm going to lose money on this engagement and doing this employee handbook for you, right? There's going to be a lot of hours into it, but I know that ultimately you're going to rely on me for HR consulting, right? And so a lot of times you'd be willing to pay to get your foot in the door, but you might be able to, take that connection that you build with the consumer and really turn it into a profitable engagement.
Yeah, so there's a way to do it.
It's like selling drugs. First one is
free. You hook them in on the drugs. The first one's free. Hey, Fairly, we're not talking about that here.
Wait, so of all the services that you do SEO, you do SEM, but what is the service or product that gets people to come to you?
We highly specialize in video and audio, right? Anything that fits into those buckets. So anything TV, radio, podcasts, streaming audio, streaming TV, all of that. And so typically people are coming to us for our speciality in those things.
But why you then? What's the unique selling proposition? Why not somebody else?
For sure, yeah. There's definitely a few that we do a little differently. For starters, as I said at the onset, like trying hard and being honest and like building a partnership differentiates us from a huge subset of the marketplace. We also have found a really good niche in terms of size. Like, unless you can spend $150 million, any of the holding co agencies won't touch you. And so there is a huge conglomerate of small, middle-sized businesses who need technically driven, competent marketing professionals inside of these two spaces. And so we really feel a need there. We're data focused. and we're also price focused. And so what we can do as a unique selling proposition is afford company partners better efficiencies in terms of how many impressions they're getting by deriving certain buying methods that differ from the mainstream. So people come to us for transparency and partnership, measurement and pricing, and we're able to communicate that with them in a way where it's pretty clear pretty quickly that we're here for the long term. We want to build a partnership. We want to be invested in your success. We want to kind of work through everything together, and ultimately that's really fueled our success.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you approach the right balance between creativity and data-driven decision-making in marketing and advertising campaigns?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it's a real blend between art and science. I love food, as you might be able to tell. I love food, and I think it's a really great analogy there, right? Technique is crucial, but putting love into it is almost as crucial, right? And so you can never fully be devoid of the other. We always say common sense is the right choice. Look at the data, measure twice, go over these things, look at it, and make informed decisions as best as possible, but never delude yourself to think that a data point is the definitive article. And so when we're talking about creativity versus measurement, you really can't afford to ignore the measurement and the outcomes and the science of it. And also you have to understand that the creative part of it is one of the key driving elements of that data. And so when we're crafting a campaign from onset, it really is about thinking through, is this going to perform? Why or why won't it? Who are we speaking to? What are we asking them to do? These are the creative elements of it. And then when we get into a campaign, it's really about the measurement of it, really looking at things and going, how is this reverberating? What are we seeing? What can we attribute to it? Are we seeing a lift? And so through different parts of the marketing cycle, we really kind of lean back and forth between creativity and science, but you can never be all in one camp.
Yeah, and I think from a interesting point of view is like even specific things like on a landing page, like some people they just ask for an email. Some people, I mean, there's so many new things that are happening now. People are just saying like text a number, call a phone number. So there's even that element that is very specific of like. You try a landing page and they, nobody puts their phone number in. Why are they not putting their phone? Maybe what you're offering isn't good. You have to think all of those things through. Maybe it doesn't look right. There's just a million elements to that, and then obviously the ad can be in the wrong place. I really, the leaky bucket analogy I think really applies to everything, because you could have the most creative ad campaign, but you don't put it in the right place.
Yep.
And you're like limiting it. Maybe you just try it one place or two places, but then it could really work in a different place. So that's a big part of it too, is testing.
Yeah, testing is crucial. Sometimes you think the thing is going to work and it doesn't, and sometimes you think the thing that will never work is the best thing you have.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes back to, you can learn these things through, success and failure, right? And really progress that way. A great example is there was a time many years ago we would run ads with telephone numbers in them all the time, and we had so many campaigns that just absolutely were so devastatingly good, just produced such great results, and then we started running campaigns that should by any measure been just as great, but they weren't producing.
Huh.
And it was a real head scratching moment, and what it really boiled down to is that the target audience was young enough where they just don't call people.
They don't talk to people. Yeah, they don't talk to people.
And so even though the offer was right, even though the messaging was good, it got down to that point where it was when you got to the means to engage with the product or service that was wrong.
Yeah, the people your audience do this, they never do this.
Correct.
The phone never makes it here.
Nope.
They're just chatting on. No, it is pretty fascinating. One thing I was gonna say too is. Spending like the failed campaigns, as long as it doesn't break you, which some They have to some extent financially. They really help too. I mean, and
Absolutely.
I think the thing about you guys spending so much money with so many different companies, it does give you some insight, and then it's like, oh, well, this is working with somebody else. I have this other client. They got something. Maybe we should try. I think that's the thing about working with an agency, whereas so much of it you try to do everything internally, but you're not. If you're just trying to sell your own thing, you don't know what's going on in the world. You don't get any data, and failed campaigns have also made me millions if you really think about it.
100%.
Because then I go, oh, I'm never going there again. I did that, or maybe I'll go there. I'll get back there again, but I'm going to take a break.
It might also ultimately force you into the thing that works.
That's right. Exactly.
And so I co-founded about 8 years ago. I've been performance marketing for 12 years. Pretty much almost the entirety of my professional career, and hundreds of clients, and like early on they weren't all wins, right?
Sure.
For sure. And over the last 4 or 5 years, a lot of the business that we've said no to is just as important as the business we've said yes to.
Right.
And that's through lessons learned. But to your point, the campaigns at large, ultimately, those failures inside of campaigns teach you a tremendous amount of actionable intelligence, right? It's not just a failure. It's a data point for you to go, we should steer around that next time. Or maybe we should be steering in this completely opposite direction.
Yeah.
And finding those that's what marketing really is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is the metaverse worth investing in?
Not yet. To summarize, I think there will come a time and a place where there is, and you say the metaverse as if it's one thing. Which metaverse, right? When there is a prevailing currency for that word, when there is a unified metaverse and there is a digital engagement that lives up to the ideology of what that word is supposed to mean, yeah, it will for sure be worth. But I think we're a good bit away. I don't know exactly what that is, but I don't think we're there yet.
I'm going to read a question that's not from AI that I think came from a writer. As a growth hacker, I think this is a really good question. I don't know if anyone wrote this. As a growth hacker, you're tasked with boosting the popularity of an American cultural event or tradition, like the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade or the Super Bowl halftime show. What creative strategies would you implement to make it go viral? Shooting turkeys?
I mean, just
Is that what you're thinking? Like just
on national TV.
Just blood and guts?
Yeah. No,
okay, besides that's my idea. I don't think that's too...
I think going viral is such a wild term. I think what it really means is finding a way to capture the zeitgeist, the current moment's culture, right? Because we live in a time where culture is you can check your watch by it.
Right.
The thing that was a thing 3 days ago isn't a thing anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a brand called Elf or Eye Lips Face. It's a cosmetics brand who has done an incredible job kind of viralizing their brand.
True.
Super.
I know the brand.
You know the brand.
Oh,
Okay.
everybody does. It's
Except
huge.
for me.
We are not their target consumer. We are not their consumer.
They don't do male makeup?
They might. They might. And so, I think what I would do is I would really try to double down on my highest conviction. What is the thing? And I would try to be insanely current. You can't overthink this because time doesn't allow for it.
Right.
You have to be present, you have to be in the moment, and you have to catch a wave, so to speak. For you to really be propelled by what is, going viral, you have to be present. Mm-hmm. And so I think, as a marketer, I would look for what that is. I would look for top trending. I'd look for the hottest person you can engage in terms of popularity or social currency at the given time, and try to ride that wave. A great example might be, out of nowhere came Threads from Instagram,
right.
And it was every single person who was doing anything with marketing or advertising or business was like, this is the new platform. This is the, the new currency outside of Twitter. And whether it'll be that or not is irrelevant. I don't think it will be. But if you were doing anything, you went over there to see what was going on.
Sure.
And so when something like that happens, that's a wave. You can ride that wave. So go and grab the wave that is Threads and try to use that to push whatever your thing is into the next level. So, co-branding, ride the wave, stay current, and really focus on trying to...
While you were talking, I think I came up with the idea for the Super Bowl.
Okay.
You don't tell anybody who's performing.
Okay.
And then you do Michael Jackson hologram.
It could be pretty controversial. It could be pretty controversial.
No? Is he? He's nobody's.
Oh well, the question is if it's gonna go viral. Yeah, but you're just gonna piss people off.
But isn't that part of
You don't have to piss people off to go viral, but it doesn't hurt.
Elvis?
Yeah, so like Elvis, I think that would have for sure gone viral. I think look at the Barbie movie right now. I think that's gone viral, and they've done that through what I'm saying. They've done that all through co-branding, right? So that movie.
Oh man, they've spent a fortune. I mean, right? I mean,
they've spent a fortune, but they're doing it in a way that's very different. They're viral because they are every brand, establishment, every presence that's out there. Now there's Barbie, right?
Yeah.
And they're against the trend.
They're against
the social trend.
Social trend, yeah.
So still.
Well, Scott, thank you. It's great to just kind of get into a bunch of topics on marketing. I'm sure we could talk about this for the next 5 hours if we wanted to. But self-made millionaire tips. Hope you liked it. If you want to contact Mint, contact us. We'll get you in touch. Great company. We'll talk soon.